Hello and welcome to Talkin Yanks. It's the Sharp Stats episode. Time to get smart. My name's Jimmy. I got Jake as always, producer BBD as always. And as always, on Sharp Stats, we are joined by the Queen of Stats, KT Sharp. Katie, how are you today?
I am, I've been better, fellas. I'm sure you guys have been better too. But we are sitting here on Thursday afternoon recording this. And not only is Yankee Twitter in sort of a mess, but kind of the whole world's a mess right now, or at least in the United States. So we are hoping for better times ahead for both our Yankees and for our country. But I'm hopefully, we'll leave here with a little optimism, but also put some perspective on the season and perspective on what's happening around, and make everybody a little bit smarter.
That's the goal. I think we all need a little perspective in and outside of Yankees world. But yeah, it's funny. Yankees Twitter is having a bad time, and they should to a degree, but not as bad of a time as they're having. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, I did see someone. And it was the first, I guess, smirk I got was someone did the 5 times 2.7 is, what's that, 13-ish?
13
yeah, 13 losses in a row.
So they were like, that would be the longest losing streak since like the 80s or something like that. And I was like, all right.
I'm over that conversion.
So we're doing this kind of thing. So, and you know what? I think tomorrow when I wake up, I'm hoping that this weekend the perfect dose of medicine is a little Mets baseball for us. So hopefully that'll straighten things out. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's tough.
I mean, the trolls are. I mean, they're coming after Boone. They're even coming after Cashman now. I got that on my mentions.
Oh yeah.
So I don't. Hard to tell where that's going. But yeah, I mean, you just gotta wake up on Friday and just hey, it's a new series, a new team to play, and we got 5 games to flush it all out. So I mean, that's at least some good news.
There's other good news that maybe we'll do a little bit of, but the best news of the offseason, Gerrit Cole joining the Yankees. Turns out his most recent start's a bummer, Katie. I don't know what you have for us. We were discussing topics, and I kind of wanted to know, the home run numbers for Cole right now are crazy, but home run numbers don't kill you. We've referenced Verlander winning the Cy Young with the most home runs, but is this who he's always been? Is this a different Cole? Like, what do you got on Gerrit Cole, the home runs, and his performance thus far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys have noted those numbers. He does give up more than his fair share of home runs. Like last year, we'll say he gave up 29 home runs. He's up to 10 this year, though. But it is a little bit concerning for me. And one of the stats that has been out there on Twitter a lot is that 13 of his 16 runs that he's given up have been versus home runs, right? So that's 81%. And that's actually incredibly high. So even last year, when he was giving up all those runs, and you figure, oh, well, if he gives up a lot of home runs, then, a lot of those home runs will be towards his run total. But last year, only 33 of the 66 runs that he gave up were on home runs. So that's because he gave up 25 solo home runs. So
really?
Yep. And so that's about half of them.
Say that again? 20?
Last year, he gave up 25 solo home runs out of his 29 total. That's so sort of ridiculous.
He gave up two-run homers the other day, right?
Oh yeah. That's this year. That's not the case.
Yeah.
So the average is about 57% of your home runs will be solo home runs that you give up. So last year was was crazy for him. So the thing is, for me though, the home runs just by themselves as a stat isn't that worrisome, but what is happening to his pitches and on the under the hood is a little bit concerning for me. And it's basically the eye test is that he is getting hit much harder overall this season. And it's not just last start, it's through the entire season. And I've been tracking this. And kind of the big statistic that really stood out to me is his barrel percentage. And we've talked about this. Barrels are basically the best kind of batted ball that you can have. It's like, has like an 800 batting average and like a 1500 slugging percentage. So most of them are extra base hits. A lot of them are home runs. His barrel percentage has doubled from last year to this year, more than doubled. It went from 5% to 11%. And a major league average is about 6%. So that is really concerning. His hard hit rate is up about 10 percentage points from 35% to 45%. And if you want to put that in perspective, the major league average is about 35%. So he's going from average, which is fine, to way above league average. And also notable, his average exit velocity this is on all his pitches, is up about 3 miles per hour, from about league average to way above league average. So this I don't know, and this is kind of one of those things. Are people seeing him a little bit better? Are players just getting a little bit more comfortable against him? And I think I'll have some more numbers to kind of back that up in a little bit. And then the other thing that really stood out to me was that batters are pulling more balls against him. So last year, 31% of his batted balls were pulled. This year, it's up to 42%. So that really kind of tells me that they're seeing his pitches better. They're squaring up better. I don't know if it might be sequencing, but it's not a kind of a mirage, or it's not just a one-time thing. But players are hitting his balls a lot better, and it's reflected obviously in his results, where ERA is bad, but it's up. So that's a little bit concerning for me.
Do you have the breakdown of what pitches are being hit? Is it his fastball that's getting hit the most or the hardest? Because it's ticked up from last year in percentage, not enough to actually say that it's like tiny, but he is throwing it more than he threw it last year. Is that maybe a solution? Is that pitch getting hit more than the other pitches? I guess that's
yeah. His fastball has really degraded from last year. And that is also another thing that is a concern for me, because that was kind of his bread and butter pitch last year. If you think about Gerrit Cole, you think about him throwing 98 mile per hour gas and it just going right past people, right? Him being able to challenge hitters up in the zone with his fastball. And that's often the best way to get people out, because it's a lot tougher to get those bendy pitches and those secondary pitches to get people to swing at them. But yeah, the numbers on his fastball are pretty bad. His whiff percentage is down about 12 percentage points, from 38 to 26%. That's a swing and miss percentage. The expected slugging on his fastball, so that's taking into account launch angle and exit velocity, is up 200 points, from 321 to 551. Granted, 321 expected slugging on your fastball is pretty ridiculous what he did last year. And then the expected WOBA, which we've talked about before, that's up about 100 percentage points, from 248 to 342. Giving a perspective of his fastball from last year to this year, yes, it is far worse. And the problem is he's throwing it more. And he's not able to put away batters, to finish batters with his fastball. Now, Statcast has a statistic called put away percentage, and basically, when you look at it on a pitch type per basis, it's the percentage of 2-strike pitches that result in a strikeout. So you look at all the 2-strike fastballs he's thrown and how many of those result in a strikeout. Last year it was 33%. This year it's all the way down to 19%. So he's not able to finish batters with his fastball, which is what he's known for. And so I think he's struggling with that a little bit, and it may take a little bit of an adjustment, because his curve and his slider, his secondary pitches, are better than last year in terms of the whiff rates. But obviously he can't throw those 50% of the time. Or at least maybe he could, but I don't think it would be correct. So he's going. I think he's struggling. The fastball, which has always been his bread and butter pitch, his first pitch. He's struggling with it a little bit now. So I'm interested to see, if he knows that, if anybody can kind of work with some of his mechanics or maybe his sequencing or something. But that seems to be probably one of the bigger problems that I've seen.
Is there anything? I mean, the only other pitching variable that I can really think of is location. Is there anything with that? Is there anything like is it just the meat of the zone and he's not hitting corners, or is there anything tied to that?
Well, it's interesting because I kind of looked at some of his pitches, the movement and some of that. The spin is terrific. Like I think we mentioned this earlier, he's got 100% spin efficiency on his fastball, which means it's perfect backspin
Right.
in terms of
that's nice.
Right. So that's really good. Except the problem is that it's not getting as much ride, even though the spin efficiency is there in terms of the vertical movement. It's just dropping a tiny bit more, while his curve is also dropping a little bit less. So I think that you got a little bit less separation between the fastball and the curve. I don't know if that's doing something. But the other thing that kind of stood out to me is that you talked about the meatballs, the heart of the zone. So I looked at pitches that he's throwing in the heart of the zone, and he's challenging hitters with those pitches kind of basically at the same rate as last year. But for some reason, those pitches are getting absolutely crushed. And last year they weren't. And that to me, that's something like maybe some deception, some sequencing things. But the numbers are really kind of really crazy. I mean, well, especially from last year. So last year these are pitches in the heart of the zone. So I'm not talking like middle meatballs. I'm just talking things that are not on the edges of the zone. So we can get a little bit of a larger sample. Last year, batters had a 228 batting average, a 453 slugging, and a 279 WOBA. So all of those are way below league average. This year, a 300 batting average, a 740 slugging percentage, and a 417 WOBA. So basically, batters are basically Luke Voit when hitting his pitches that are thrown in the heart of the zone. And last year, they were basically like, not Brett Gardner, but something like that. So I really couldn't tell, and it's all his pitches, and it's in every count, whether he's ahead, he's behind, even counts. It's the same deal, the same trend. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe he does. There just has to be some adjustments that he has to make, because he does talk about being aggressive in the zone. And I think he talked about after his last start about he wanted to be aggressive, and he thought that the batters wouldn't be aggressive at that time, and kind of just he's not syncing up. So I think that there's a lot to unpack there. I know.
Even with these numbers, which are down from last year, he's still like a top tier pitcher pitching right now. Like he had, we're talking about how these are a little concerning comparative to last year. Last year is the best pitcher in all of baseball. The voters accidentally didn't give him the Cy Young for some reason. It's not like we were going to get that season from him every single year. So hopefully, maybe he just realizes, hey, I can't challenge Acuna with a fastball right down the middle on a 3-2 pitch anymore. That's not in my bag anymore, or right now. So
for some reason, for some reason, his fastball, he's just not able to challenge hitters like he was last year. And I think that's an adjustment that he has to make. I think he can make it. I mean, the guy is so smart. And he is, we all know that he's all into the analytics. So I'm sure that he is getting a lot of feedback from the coaching staff on this. And I'm pretty confident that he can adjust in this way. So yeah. And like we said, it's kind of, we're going to talk about this a lot. It's about perspective. Last year, he was amazing. And I think it would have been ridiculous to kind of assume that he would be able to duplicate that this year, especially given the circumstances with the virus and everything, and all the postponements and the nature of this season. So,
and it feels like a little bit with those fastball numbers. It feels like maybe there's a hint of luck there. I mean, again, you get clipped by Marcelo Zuna and Ronald Acuna Jr., those are, studs. So maybe it's not luck. Maybe it's not luck there necessarily. But yeah, I think that number just seems high. But it also could be maybe that was something in the scouting report from last year to this year when head coach got into it, that you're gonna get challenged by some Cole's fastballs, and if you're ready for it, you might do all right. Interested to see how he adjusts, and at the same time, you always wonder how the no spring training and everything does tie into this. I mean, Gerrit Cole through his first 6 starts last year had a 4.71 ERA. I mean, one of those is a blow-up that skews it a little bit. But, if you're doing apples and apples to a degree, it's still fine. It's I think Jimmy and I stumbled into it the other day. He's had 2 kind of meh starts this year, where I think he had 2 meh starts all of last year, which is kind of a bummer to think about a little bit. But I don't know. He looks all right. I guess the fastball is the pitch to watch, because you're saying the other stuff is better?
Yeah, I mean, that the good news is that his curve is ridiculous right now. His slider is really good. The results on the curve are not great, because, I mean, that's kind of a fact. I think that's kind of a fact of life with those really bendy pitches, that when you hang one, I mean, it's just going to get crushed, and there isn't a large enough sample to make up for that. But if you look at kind of the peripherals, the whiff rate, the spin, those are all improved from last year. And the same with the slider. So, I mean, that's the good news, is that it's not like he doesn't have a put away pitch. He still has a put away pitch. It's just not the same one that it was last year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. He faces Tampa Bay next week. If everything stays the same, which it very likely cannot. It very likely may change. More strikes or postponements or COVID. There's like so many reasons why we would get rainouts or, AK, whatever now. But one more game against the Rays. He's faced them twice already. And that'll be his last test, quote unquote, against a team that's really trying to win. Because after that, it's going to be Baltimore, Boston, and I think one against Toronto. So,
yeah. One thing I do want to bring up that just kind of triggered my memory here a little bit with the Rays is that one other thing I didn't mention is his numbers against lefties. And granted, it's a bit of a smaller sample size, obviously, but his numbers against lefties this year are much worse than last year. And if you look at last year, lefties had a 587 OPS against him. This year, it's up to 817. And the biggest change that I noticed against lefties was that he's pretty much almost abandoned his changeup. And he's throwing a lot more fastballs, a couple more curves. So that's it's something to watch right now. We don't have enough of a sample really to make any conclusions, but it is a concern, especially against the Rays, who we know have a ton of lefty guys that they can put in their lineup or, off the bench or however they want to do it. So I'm not really sure what's going on with his changeup. I didn't do enough research to see if it's, a pitch that he's never really liked, or he just kind of, I don't know why he's throwing about half his few against lefties, barely any. I mean, it's just been a handful this year. So yeah, I think that is definitely something else. If you want to look for something else against the Rays, it would be how he's doing against those lefty batters and whether he's maybe just doesn't have any confidence in his changeup this year. And it makes sense maybe with the curve that's been good. But I don't know. It's just a little bit of a little bit of a worrisome thing for me.
That's an odd one, because that's I mean, obviously Tommy Kahnle, a very different pitcher, but we know him for being dominant versus lefties for using that changeup. So we'll keep an eye out for the change too. Maybe he's saving it for this next start versus the Rays. Maybe.
It's a long play. Also, very small sample size, but he's been much better at the stadium than not at the stadium so far. I think it's like 3 and 4 starts.
Sure.
Must be those home fans.
Small sample season.
Fans. Those virtual fans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes the virtual crowd at Yankee Stadium better. All right, well, that's all we got on Cole. Katie, I have to tell you something very exciting before we pivot to the next topic, and it's DraftKings. and the fact that there are 100 million reasons why you should listen up about DraftKings. Wow, good smooth transition, Jimmy. DraftKings is a leader in one-day fantasy sports, and they are celebrating the return of sports by giving away up to $100 million in prizes to all of their customers, including one lucky winner who will take home a $1 million cash prize. To claim your share of up to $100 million in instant giveaways, all you have to do is download the app and sign up using promo code Jomboy. Then enter DraftKings free football survivor pool. It's that easy. You can do it, and you would claim your share of up to $100 million in instant giveaways and put yourself in the running to win $1 million cash prize. The top prize is reserved for one lucky winner, but everyone who signs up and enters DraftKings free football survivor pool will receive an instant bonus prize of at least $5 in value upon entering. While you're in the app, don't forget to check out all the great odds and boosts and promotions DraftKings Sportsbook is offering every day to celebrate this week's basketball and golf action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Jomboy to claim your share of $100 million in instant giveaways and put yourself in the running for the $1 million cash top prize. That's promo code Jomboy to get your share of $100 million in prizes only at DraftKings. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey only. Other terms and conditions and restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Call them up. Jake, take us into the next topic.
Beautiful, Jim. Reed. Where are we going next? Are we going into kind of the breadth of this season? I don't think that's the right phrase, but we need to bring the people back a little bit, Katie, because like I said, we've got people talking about I think someone said it was if you do the multiply by 2.7, it was like the fourth longest losing streak in Yankees history or something like that. The crazies are out. The injuries are still with the Yankees, which stinks, and we kind of need to bring that back into scope. And I think Brian Hoke just tweeted out that DJ LeMahieu should be back this weekend. But I think we need to bring in the whole picture back, Katie, because the sky is falling, and yes, it's sad, and I think nobody wants to deal with the injury stuff anymore. But in the realm of 2020, I mean, the Yankees are still very much in everything.
Yeah, and I think that we kind of just, what I wanted to do was just kind of put a lot of the numbers into perspective. Just kind of give everybody a macro view and hopefully prevent some unfortunate things from happening on bridges or whatever. But yeah, so the projections or the playoff odds that I like to use are on Fangraphs. And what they do is they actually have three different sort of modes that you can use for projections the rest of the season, the playoff odds for the rest of the season. One of them is called their Fangraphs projection mode, and what it does, it's more of a forward-looking one. So it uses a combination of projection systems and the depth charts of how many, what players are going to get plate appearances and starts. And so based on those, the Yankees, not surprisingly, have a 98% chance to make the playoffs. And if you kind of just look at the entire AL, this is ridiculous, but there are 7 teams in the AL that have a 97.5% chance of making the playoffs or better. Remember, there's 8 teams this year in each league. And then the next best team is at 65%. That's the Blue Jays. So basically, from the projections, it looks like, the playoff field is pretty much set. A lot of what's to be determined, obviously, is the division winners and the seedings. But who knows what that's even going to mean in terms of home field advantage. I mean, we may be playing all of our games in Los Angeles or, in Washington, D.C. So that's one thing I want to put into perspective. If you go into look at, they have another mode called season to date mode, which is more of a backward looking mode in that it uses the current season stats and it weights the most recent games more heavily. Even with that, the Yankees have a 94% chance to make the playoffs. So, I mean, yes, the Yankees are not favored to win the division at this point. But if people are calling for, Boone to get fired or Cashman to get fired, and the Yankees, they're never going to win another game. And that's just, it's kind of just kind of ridiculous. And obviously the thing, hanging behind all of this is the injuries, right? And while the Yankees have not suffered I think the extent of the pitching injuries that other teams have and that has league-wide, I think you guys mentioned on the podcast, there's 98 pitchers, not including COVID, that have been on the IL this year. And through the same number of games last year, it was like about half as many. So obviously the Yankees, they have been more hurt in the lineup. So what I did is I looked at the top players, the top batters, according to the preseason projections. And if you look at kind of just looking at all the different projection systems, the consensus top 4 batters by WAR were, and these guys all either are currently on the IL or spent time on the IL, were DJ, Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, and Giancarlo Stanton. Those were the top 4 guys that were projected to have the most WAR on our team. And guess what? They have either been on the IL, currently on the IL, and probably all currently will be on the IL by the time you guys hear this. Aaron Judge goes back on. So that is, I didn't look, but I don't think any other team has suffered that much in terms of offense. Yes, more teams have suffered injuries in terms of pitching, but in terms of the offense, this Yankee team is not even close to being full strength. So I think that's another thing. The other thing that I did is I looked at, just looked at what other teams are doing this year. We think that we're the only team that's supposed to be good that is losing games, right? Mm-hmm. No, not exactly. So you look at the Rays, right? They're really good, right? Well, they happen to have a 5-game losing streak earlier this season, just like the Yankees. And 3 of those losses were to the Orioles. So that kind of tells the depth that they were at. The Twins, currently in first place in the Central, they at one point had a 4-game losing streak, lost 5 of 6 and 6 of 9. That's kind of what the Yankees are in right now. The Braves, we just played them. They're the leader in the NL East. They had a 4-game losing streak. They had a stretch where they lost 7 of 10. The Cubs, who were the Central leaders in the NL, they had a 4-game losing streak and a stretch where they lost 7 of 10. So all of these teams, the exception obviously is the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are they're basically on a historic pace right now in terms of winning and run differentials. But all these teams that are currently leading their divisions that are considered heavy favorites for the postseason, they went through the same stretches kind of that the Yankees are going through. So if you kind of want to put that into perspective, put that into your brain a little bit, I just think that, yes, things are really bad right now, but that doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to continue to get bad, assuming that we get healthy at some point.
Just need the healthy guys to come back, stay healthy, and perform, and that's what's scaring me as we're running out of time. But yeah, losing streaks will happen. All this will happen, and we're not losing at full strength. That's the good news. The bad news is we're not at full strength.
Yeah, that's if you look at kind of what we did when we were at full strength. If you can remember back then, remember we started 8-1, I think, right? Yep. And that was with all those guys. Yeah. And the other thing is, people right now, the mentions I get on my Twitter about this home run or bust team and we don't play small ball. That's ridiculous. Because the last time that I thought that, Tyler Wade and Thairo Estrada and whoever else they're running out there, Brett Gardner, or Talkman are home run guys is just ridiculous. And then one more thing I want to pull out here is I looked at, everyone knows during the Rays series, we went 1 for 21 with the runners in scoring position, right? And everyone's like, oh, well, that's because they can't hit. It always happens. This is a typical Yankee team, whatever. It's not true. But I looked at the player at that point. Stanton, Judge, and DJ were all on the IL. So I looked at their combined numbers with runners in scoring position this season. So this is what was on the IL at that point. They have let me just get this right here, a 394 batting average with runners in scoring position, and a 460 on base percentage with runners in scoring position, a 758 slugging percentage with runners in scoring position. Those 3 players combined. The players that were actually healthy during that series with the Rays had this is all with runners in scoring position, a 238 batting average, a 350 on base, and a 483 slugging. And those are season numbers. That's obviously not what they did during the Rays, but those are the season numbers for the players that were healthy during the series with the Rays compared to the season numbers for the players that were not healthy. And I think it's pretty much that's where you really see what you're missing there in terms of production. Obviously health. I mean, it's coming down to health again, which is, kind of, it's a tired story, but it's the facts of life right now.
Yeah, that's the fear right now. I mean, that's the scene from The Replacements. Gene Hackman's going around the locker room and what makes you scared. I mean, it's for Yankees fans, it's injuries. I mean, it's when you mention, that 4 guys on the Yankees IL with whose numbers in scoring position are normally peak Ted Williams, you're gonna miss that from your lineup, and it really is just this weird mental dance you have to do where I guess I normally do this with the bullpen. Like if you add an 8th inning guy to your bullpen, you just made your 6th and 7th inning guys better too, because they were normally an inning up. With the Yankees lineup, part of what made it special is, Gary Sanchez batting 7th hole, the fastest player to ever hit 100 home runs in the AL. Luke Voit, wherever he started the season, I think he was about 6. Luckily, he's been incredible, and he's been carrying the offense, which you might hear on the sharpest stat in a little bit. But what made this lineup special is that those guys were the bonus pieces around the Gleyber Torres, the Aaron Judge, the Giancarlo Stanton, and the DJ LeMahieu, 4th in the MVP last year. That I mean, it really is crazy when you say the names. It almost feels like Arya Stark mode, like DJ LeMahieu, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres. I mean, those are, that's supposed to be the core of this Yankees lineup. And now we're currently missing all of them, and knock on wood, knock on whatever gives you good luck if you got a rabbit's tail or something. Because, the Yankees aren't going to be the Yankees without those guys.
It's true.
Yeah. You couldn't. I mean, that's perfectly said. I mean, we're not the Yankees are not the Yankees right now. What they're running out there. And the hope is that at some point they will be the Yankees before the playoffs.
The playoffs, although they get hot in time. Jake teased it about Luke.
Yes.
Sharpest stat. Katie, do you have the sharpest stat for us this
Give
week?
us some good stuff, Katie. Give us the goods.
All right. I mean, we got to end this on a good note, right? We got to send the people out happy, smiling, thinking about some good thoughts for the day. So the first one I want to point out about Luke Voit is just pull up the major league leaderboards, all right? And look at all qualified batters. And kind of the most comprehensive stat out there is what's called weighted runs created plus. And it's park adjusted, it's league adjusted, so it's got all those adjustments in it. And what it does is it just looks at, it's basically on a scale from 0 to infinity, where 100 is average. Luke Voit is at a 190 weighted runs created plus. And this is basically looking at all types of offensive production. It's singles, doubles, triples, home runs, everything. That's the highest in the major leagues. And it equates 190 equates to 90% better than league average. So Luke Voit, if you want to go by this metric, is the best offensive player in the entire major leagues right now. His slugging percentage, you like that number? That's also the highest in the major leagues. So if we want to just kind of give some love to our best player on the team, I think we can do that. The other thing that really stood out to me about Luke Voit is that not only is he the best this year, but he is also one of the most improved players from last year. And we know a lot of that was because of the injuries, but the improvement that he has is also pretty ridiculous. Basically, if you look at players with about 400 plate appearances last year, and I think 100 or 75 this year. Only Juan Soto has improved more.
Whoa.
And we know Juan Soto's having a ridiculous season. He would actually be ahead of Voight if you kind of lowered the plate appearances to not qualifying on the leaderboards. But yeah, so Luke Voit has improved across every single metric, one of the most improved players, and now he is also one of the best players this season. So let's just
go Voit, go.
give your little hand clap to Luke Voit and just hope that he there we go. Yes, very nice. And just kind of appreciate what you see every day with him, because it's something special.
He's going
right now.
crazy. He's easily the bright spot on the offense. Hopefully DJ comes back this weekend. And then you have DJ, Voight, Hicks.
Start doing it.
Do that. And Hicks needs to come around. So,
yeah.
All right. Jake, do you have a butter knife for us or no?
I don't have a butter knife. On Luke Voit, Jimmy and I get caught up looking at the Baseball Reference pictures of everybody that pops up when you click a team page, and it was just funny. They've got a picture from Luke Voit last year, and he looks like a chubby guy. He hasn't looked like that this year. So shout out to athletic Luke Voit this year, and it working, because I know we made some jokes about that early in the season. And then just kind of circling it all up, when you click on Baseball Reference in the team page, it shows their picture and it ranks them by WAR throughout the current season, and it's just funny. Luke Voigt's been so good. He is currently 4th on the Yankees in WAR, with DJ, Cole, and Judge ahead of him. So even with them missing time and how good Voigt's been, those guys are still ahead of him, and that shows how important guys like LeMahieu and Judge really are.
I have a trivia for you, Katie. Who has the 12th highest WAR on the Yankees?
Ooh, tough question.
12th highest.
12th.
I know who has
highest.
the worst. Let me think about out of how many, because I know who has the worst.
It's a positive WAR.
It's a positive WAR.
And it is. So it's a
12th
positive
highest.
WAR.
Oh, wait, Baseball Reference or Fangraphs?
Baseball Reference.
Baseball Reference. And my hint will be there's a reason he's asking this.
Tyler Wade.
Eric Kratz.
Oh, Eric Kratz, yes.
0.2 WAR.
It's look good.
Who has the worst WAR in the Yankees, Katie, since you know?
It's Gary Sanchez.
Oh,
For
yeah.
sure.
It's like
It's
5
gotta
hits.
be. Yeah, it's definitely
Another
Gary
fun
Sanchez.
fact is that all of these players in the Yankees are different color skin tones, but
Yeah.
according to Baseball Reference, they're all the same. Like all the same.
Interesting.
It's really weird.
No, and that's the other, just my final thoughts besides their pictures. Just how weird this season is. Like Johnny Loaizaga, having a really nice year, and I was like, when's the last time he's pitched? August 19th. It's the 27th. So it's you have some of these moments that's like, what? So
Chad
I don't know.
Green went 10 days. Chad Green went 10 days without pitching.
I know.
How do you do that?
It's crazy that it goes down like that. I'm hoping the Mets can fix us a little bit in 5 games or 3 or 4, depending the weather. Not to get the weather people all jazzed up, but keep playing regular games. And yeah, God, that LeMahieu guy would be real nice for the weekend.
I'd like that.
That would be real nice.
In the meantime, enjoy your days. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, as always, Katie, for joining us. Go Yankees. Tell them, Grams.
Go Yankees.